Face me if you dare, stunted whelp, or do you lack even an elven maid's courage? I thought the sons of Grugni were great warriors, but perhaps you are no true dwarf. Indeed, maybe you're instead some breed of bearded goblin, though in truth I have seen a finer beard on a troll's backside.
WULFRIK the Wanderer, also known as the Eternal Challenger, the Inescapable One and the World Walker, is the ultimate seafaring warrior. A mighty giant of a man, clad in a hulking plate and bedecked in the trophies of his many kills, WULFRIK travels the four corners of the world, seeking the greatest and most deadly warriors and beasts to bring them to battle and slaughter them as commanded by the gods. One of the most devoted followers of chaos to walk the earth, WULFRIK has made offerings of lords, kings, sea serpents and dragons to his masters. To Khorne he offers up their skulls, to Nurgle the contents of their slit bellies, and to Slaanesh their still beating hearts, with Tzeentch taking their dying breath. In his former life, WULFRIK was a chaos champion of the Saal tribe of southern Norsca, a warrior born who bore the mark of the dark gods upon his flesh. He was forever renowned throughout the holdings of his tribe, and beyond as a superlative warrior, feared for his prodigious strength and unmatched skill at arms. WULFRIK forged his infamy by taking the heads of every rival Chaos champion who crossed his path, proudly displaying them for all to see as a declaration of his power and the folly of challenging him. In the violent societies of Norsca, WULFRIK was famed, and many sagas were sung to his glory by the Skald chanters of the Saals. Pride proved to be the Chosen's downfall, however. It was in 2500 IC that a massive bout of tribal conflict had erupted between the Saals and their traditional rivals, the Aeslings of the North. The Aeslings were led by their king, a terrible chaos lord known as Torgald. Outnumbered and outmatched, it seemed doom had come to the men of the Saals, with only bloody death awaiting them at the hands of their merciless cousins. However, the Saals themselves were not entirely without means. Their king, a chosen of Tzeentch known as Viglander, was a cunning war leader who possessed great wealth as a result of many profitable raids, and thus was able to procure the services of legions of mercenaries from across the length and breadth of the Norscan realms, and even as far abroad as the Kurgan tribes. Recognising WULFRIK's skill at arms, Viglander also offered the champion untold wealth from the hand of his daughter, and thus the status of a king by inheritance, if he could gain victory for the tribe in command. WULFRIK, though looking down upon Viglander as a pathetic shadow of his predecessors, nonetheless gasped at the chance for power, and led the hosts of the Saals to war. Unbeknownst to WULFRIK, Saal or Aesling at the time, the entire war was nothing more than a highly complex Machiavellian scheme enacted by Viglander to eliminate Torgald, thus allowing his more pliable son Svenbjorn to take the throne of the Aeslings. This would then have engendered an alliance with the northern tribe, and this would have seen Viglander's power and that of the Saals increased by the aid of the bloodthirsty cornet Aeslings. Indeed, the Raven God had marked the Saal king well with his cunning.
Dogs of Norsca, the bones of your brothers lie buried in this snow, far from the home of their ancestors. The beasts who visited such craven death upon your comrades come now to feast upon their still warm flesh. You run when I tell you to run. Now fight when I tell you to fight. Now, brothers, for the Blood Guard!
At the now legendary Battle of Thousand Skulls, the Sarls and Acelings clashed. Amid the carnage, Wulfrik fought the mighty Aceling King. Wulfrik slew the Chaos Lord, decapitating him and holding his head high for his tribesmen to see. With the death of their king, the Acelings quit the field, and victory was in the hands of the Sarls. That night, as was the custom of the northern tribes, a great feast was held in Wulfrik's honour. No man nor beast, Wulfrik proclaimed, had fought more fiercely in battle than he, and none, he swore, would outdrink him in victory. Using the skull of King Torgald as his drinking vessel, Wulfrik had matched words with deeds. It had taken 8 entire barrels of mead to put him under the table, a feat that had impressed even the ogres who had fought alongside him. Before the mead completely overwhelmed him, however, the drunken Wulfrik began to boast of his exploits. Before he was done, he had slain every beast of the Chaos Waste twice, and personally boxed the ears of the emperors of the Empire, Nippon and Cathay. However, it was the champion's final boast that brought the doom upon his head. He claimed he was the equal of any warrior of the realms of the mortal world or the realms beyond flesh. That night, Wulfrik was visited by an emissary of the Dark Gods. In his dreams, the demon led him to paradises, necropolises, and fantastic netherworlds. He saw the gleaming towers of the elf folk, the gilded halls of the dwarf lords, and the ramshackle fortresses of orcish kings. And everywhere he passed was drowned in great tides of blood. The emissary spoke of how Wulfrik's brazen words had offended the gods, but they'd also intrigued them enough to challenge their champion to prove his proud words. He was now charged to travel the 4 corners of the worlds and to seek out the fiercest challengers, the most monstrous creatures and most ferocious adversaries, to slay them in single combat and prove his might. If he failed, the emissary explained, then his soul would forever be cursed by the gods and deemed unworthy to join them in their halls. He then spoke with relish of how demons would take great pleasure in torturing his soul for all eternity should that come to pass. When Wulfrik awoke, he found himself speaking in 1,000 languages, and his tongue had been twisted into a sharp, fluted shape like that of a bird's. A shaman of the Kurgan tribes recognized that this was the gift of tongues, and enthusiastically pronounced Wulfrik as blessed. Wulfrik, a short-tempered man by any standard, with little patience for others, made certain that the Kurgan died slowly. Even as he began burning the Kurgan's toes from his feet, the shaman was incapable of telling the champion where the thoughts were coming from, nor how to make them stop. The first test was to hunt down the Tomb Lord Keriops and offer up his shriveled entrails to Nurgle, the god of decay. Thus Wulfrik was charged to travel to the baking deserts of Kemri, a voyage undertaken by only the boldest of Northmen, for the desert lay many leagues south of the far north. In order to accomplish his newfound duty, Wulfrik required transport beyond the abilities of a normal longship. In the end, it was Sigvatur, a grizzled marauder and longtime comrade, who solved the conundrum. For he had heard tales of a ship blessed by the Dark Gods with the power to circumvent the greatest distances in the blink of an eye, which was in the keeping of a Chaos Sorceress, the scaling witch Bagayar, who dwelt in a vast fortress garrisoned by hordes of demons. It had taken all of the treasure he had seized from King Torgald, as well as all of the silver Viglunda had paid him in order to assemble a large army that was fierce enough to overcome the unholy defences of the sorcerers. In a battle worthy of the sagas, the Norsemen had triumphed over the demons, proving their strength to the dark gods. In the end, Wulfrik hunted down the sorceress and hacked off her limbs before boiling the nutritious nugget that remained, alive in her own cauldron. Almost 200 men had been slain facing her demonic army, but Wulfrik and his warband had triumphed eventually. The treasures and artifacts, aside from the ship, he left his warriors to plunder. He had only come for one thing, the bitch's longship, which he then named the Seafang. The Seafang was indeed no ordinary ship, for it was not mere flight that allowed its legendary mobility. Instead, the longship would fade from the mortal world into the realms of the gods, travelling upon the winds of chaos itself, past the hunting grounds of demons and the nightmares of men. The ship would sail upon phantom tides known only to the gods, and appear again where Wulfrik willed. With such power at his command, he was inescapable. Even the men of Norska, so used to the unnatural influence of chaos, could not help but feel awed and reverent whenever the power of the Seafang was worked. Indeed, with every invocation of the ship's magic, the demons bound within it demanded an offering of blood before they could ferry the Norsemen through the ethereal realm of chaos. The only offering it had the taste for was Wulfrik's own blood, perhaps because he had been the one to slay Baba Yar. Despite this, Wulfrik made certain that with each new addition to his crew, he would feed the new warrior's blood to the Dragon's Head prow. No ship could serve two captains, and this was more true of Seafang than any other. With his demonic prize in tow, Wulfrik travelled to the land of the Tomb Kings, laying low the offering demanded of him by the gods, and holding the Tomb Lord's shrivelled innards high for the pleasure of Nurgle. Over time, his legend grew yet more fearsome as he stalked and slaughtered fell beings in service of the gods. It was Wulfrik who faced a giant in battle, slew it and then scalped its hairy head for a cloak. It was Wulfrik who travelled deep into the troll country and slaughtered the monsters there like sheep and cattle. And it was Wulfrik who journeyed to the ancient cairn of Jarl Unfir, who rose as an armoured wight, only to have its bony back broken over the champion's knee. Men journeyed from over the north to fight at the side of one so favoured by the dark gods, in the hope that they might catch some of his greatness. Tales of a hulking champion, clad in black steel and bones, wielding a dark sword, had spread so far as to be spoken in awed whispered by Kurgan nomads, as well as the bloody halls of Norscan barbarians. Thus the fame of Wulfrik grew to gargantuan proportions, and his name lived well in the sagas of the north and the nightmares of the south.
Now, brothers, for the blood god!